Did Destiny just have a huge legal win in the war against Pixie, or is it just his legal Pearl Harbor? We're going to talk about it today on The Legal Mindset, where we teach you to be your own judge. So as you guys may know, Destiny is engaged in a legal battle with Pixie. So the question is, in this latest, scuff up, what happened, what went down, and did he really win overall? Of course, I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney. This is a fast facts version and the quick and dirty version of the latest legal news. If you like this, hit the like button and make sure you're subscribed, notifications on, and leave a comment below. Okay, so let's jump right into the PP right here. We got a nice PowerPoint for you today. Did he win? Okay, let's get some background. First of all, the court ruled on two motions in Destiny's case against Pixie. Both of those were ruled in favor of Destiny. So on its face, at first glance, Destiny won both motions. He won the result of both motions. So the questions we're left with are, what happened? How much does it matter for Destiny in his case? And how are things going to play out going forward? How is the war going to look? Not just this battle. So we're going to look at that all today. First of all, Destiny himself thinks this is a huge W. And I'll read this from bottom to top here because that's the order. Today he said, two big denials, thank God. Need to read them, but both preliminary injunction and motion to compel QE Farms got completely denied. Oh God, oh my God, the judge is tech literate. They should be on the court docket. No, oh my God, they just got roasted in these. Are they public yet? Oh my God, the judge sees through all this effing BS. I'm going to put some in the swear jar for that one, even skipping that word. Oh my God, this preliminary injunction now is so nice. Oh my God, it's so brutal. Sorry, I'm done. She effed herself so hard by being insane. Now, some of this, Destiny is right. Okay, yeah. They did get denied. That's true, right? And there's not he says complete denial. There's not really a partial denial in this. It kind of was going to be granted or denied. There was just one way or another. But yes, it was indeed a win for him. But where I think he's wrong and where he is celebrating too much is by saying the judge sees through all of it, trying to sound like there's no merit in the case. And actually, if you look into the documents, there's actually proof there is merit to the case. And actually, the judge does see a lot in Pixie's case. And also saying she messed herself up so hard, that's not true at all. This is a preliminary injunction. It says nothing about the merits, and we just have to get into that and get into the actual document. So here's the actual document, Jane Doe, that's Pixie against Stephen K. Bunnell II. So we have the motion here, which is for a preliminary injunction, and that was denied. But first, we got to ask, what is a preliminary injunction? Well, a preliminary injunction is really a rapid response to stop immediate harm. Think about a person who has a crate full of bananas, right? A banana handler. In fact, Destiny is a bit of a banana handler himself. But let's say those bananas were going to go bad and you had a time schedule to keep them from going bad. You might need an injunction to get them properly stored. Well, that's something that's timely. You have to fix that immediately. You got to handle those bananas. Well, in this case, this is involving photos that were out there that Destiny was being asked to take down in one motion and the other. There was Kiwi Farms trying to be asked to take stuff down. So the question is, what are the requirements for that type of injunction to get that sort of relief where you have to do that? Well, first, there has to be a substantial likelihood of success in the merits. That means Pixie would have had to have been likely to win the case. Next, there has been irreparable harm. That means permanent harm absent the injunction. So if it is not done now, and that timeliness is key there, if it's not done now, there's going to be harm that can never be repaired. The next is the harm of the without the injunction is more than the harm to Destiny. So Destiny would have to do a lot of stuff. Is it justified? The next is it's not against public interest. There's not really a broader public interest here, right, in taking stuff down. It's not horribly strong. So that one I don't think goes either way, one way or another. But the real key is the timeliness when requesting an injunction. And this is brought up here in the case law when the judge says, hey, you have to show reasonable diligence. And a delay of even a few months, though not fatal, meaning it's not something that alone necessarily might not be enough, but it mitigates. I mean, it works against a finding of irreparable harm. The idea is premised on the need for a speedy and urgent action to protect the plaintiff's rights. That's Pixie. So when they looked at the facts, they said, hey, look, These have been uploaded for 5 months before Pixie filed for this injunction. On the Humble Fruit Farms, they were uploaded on November 24th, 2024, and she didn't ask for a injunction for 5 months. So they're out there on the internet. They've been circulating for 5 months. If she wanted to do this, her lawyers should have been on top of this. Was it her lawyers? Was it Pixie? What was it? We don't know. But that delay was alone fatal enough to the cause of action and fatal enough to this preliminary injunction. But on the other hand, while that is an L for the denial, it isn't so bad for Pixie, because we see within the documents that the judge indeed believes Pixie, at least in my opinion, beyond the standard of a motion to dismiss. It looks like here, when you read this, we have no doubt the plaintiff's testimony that she is distraught because of these events. To the contrary, we find her testimony fully credible in these regards. So by saying she is credibly distraught, that implies that a lot of her cause of action, which are based on distress, are indeed perhaps have enough merit to be brought to discovery. And as I've said, a win in a court case is not necessarily a final win. Getting to discovery is enough for a settlement, and that's what Pixie wants in the first place. She wants the money. She wants the financial punishment. Once it gets to discovery, Steven, old Tiny, is going to be pushed to actually settle out, to just pay out. And that's what she wants. That'll get it over. And eventually Destiny will see the wisdom in just paying it out and getting it off his back. And that's what really is coming down here. So is it that bad? I don't think it's that bad. Also, there's another question regarding jurisdiction, whether this belongs in federal court or state court. It could be remanded or sent down to Florida court. Now, if that happens, all but one cause of action would remain. So there's one federal claim in this that will go away. And of course, Destiny would be happy to get rid of that. He wants the claims as tiny as they can be, but overall, it wouldn't change much. They would still pass the Florida standard for a motion to dismiss. It would still go to discovery, in my opinion. I don't think this changes much for Destiny, even if he gets this pushed to state court, other than losing that federal claim, right? Which, once again, it's good for him, but it's not an overall win in the war. And it's not going to help his reputation. And beyond that, you've got the Kiwi Farms motion. Now, he's taking a victory lap over this, but it's really not him that was going to have to do anything. This is really a victory for LolCow LLC, which is Kiwi Farms, and Jersha Waboon. In this, it finds that despite the fact that LolCow LLC, Kiwi Farms, actually submitted to jurisdiction, it doesn't matter. They're not a party here. This isn't Jane Doe versus Destiny and Kiwi Farms. Kiwi Farms is not a party. So they really can't get involved here. They really have no power. So really, it's kind of a precedent saying, hey, look, if you're not suing Kiwi Farms directly, you're not really able to take stuff down off of Kiwi Farms. I think that's good for Kiwi Farms from their perspective. So I think that's a Kiwi W. I guess it's a Pixie L. And if Destiny is just happy about every Pixie L, then I guess he can be happy, right? But overall, I think this is really a Pearl Harbor for him. In the moment that, yes, he won the battle, but there's an atomic bomb coming for him. And I don't see him having the weapons to win this war, particularly against the final boss, the final battle, which is him having the videos of Rose, right? The underage person. That is just something that really, how are you going to get around that? And that's criminal, my friend. That is criminal. He's been reported to police by Willie Mack, and I'm sure others, and I'm sure law enforcement at this point has been made aware. I'm sure Pixie's lawyers have contacted them as well. So you've got this active thing going on right now. And we now have confirmation through the documents, and you can see this here in reading this highlighted text, that plaintiff hired a private investigator to ascertain, that means to find out, Rose's legal identity and location, and has just this week, meaning recently, managed to serve Rose with a subpoena ducis tecum, that's a subpoena or a request, a demand to produce documents that can include emails, text messages, Discord, Reddit, whatever they were communicating on, and to appear at a deposition. And that deposition is huge. There's going to be a sworn statement. Once that sworn statement goes down in that deposition, it's game over for Steven. It's game over for Tiny. He's going to have the law enforcement on him because they can turn over that deposition to law enforcement. They can turn over that information, and that's enough basis for them to start looking into him and charging him and going through that criminal process. As for ascertaining his identity, plaintiff had obtained evidence that her date of birth was October 30th, 2004. Thus, and this is the highlighted text, when Bennell was exchanging pornographic content with Rose between March of 22 and October 30th of 22, she was a minor. and they attach a DMV record. So at this point, we have enough evidence based on what they've submitted. Of course, some of this is redacted because she was a minor, but we have enough to, on a good faith basis, to say that there is the presumption at this point that Destiny was engaging in criminal behavior. He's got to rebut that, or there's got to be counter evidence to that. But at this point, it looks like he was engaging in criminal behavior. So what's going on now? What's the conclusion? Well, he's not won the case. And in fact, the case with Pixie has a lot of factors pointing to the fact that Pixie may win her case, may win her money. But the biggest risk for Destiny is the criminal charges. After the deposition of Rose, how is he going to deal with that? How is he going to rebut that? There really isn't a, oh, but 17 isn't that bad, bro. Well, that's below the age of consent in Florida. That's not against the law. You've got to deal with that. And once again, Destiny deserves, Steven deserves his due process, and he gets his day in court. His lawyer can go to the deposition, can object. Maybe there's some problems. Maybe there's a procedural issue. Maybe he can find a way out of it, right? But it's not looking good for him. It's looking really, really bad for him in his defense. He also lacks a digital forensics expert, something that my mod actually pointed out, which the accuser, Pixie, has obtained. If he wants to fight back, he needs to counter with digital evidence. He needs to counter with experts. And to do that, he needs to equip himself. Without those right tools, he is not going to win the war. He's going to lose the war ultimately. But did Destiny win some battles? Yes. War? Not yet. And it's still not looking good for him. But I want to know what you guys think in the comments below. And I will catch you on the next one.